Well, I mean, that's there. I think it's good. I've been varying when I ask for a suggestion, because if it's too early, then it's like 100 and something, and it's like,
That's what I asked for. Like so that you would have to go, and I would pick the biggest number I could think of. No,
well,
no.
let's see. Okay, here we go. We're going live here, and then yeah, and then afterwards, I just have a little chit chat about like how you got started, and yeah, see, like not really a lot of conversations about the scene unless you want to, but usually it's more like just how you got into improv and things like that. Okay, pick a number 1 to 15.
Well, okay. 13.
Are you superstitious of that number at all, or?
Kinda. Yeah, like
Okay.
I'm trying to break through and not feel bad about it. So
Well,
hopefully,
let's see if this helps. Our suggestion comes from, well, he goes by Tyrone Ironstone, and it's waterfowl, FOWL, waterfowl. Thanks, Tyrone.
Sarah. That was a definite foul.
Yeah, come
What
on.
a
I mean, come
foul! Like,
on.
was an
Wait,
absolute nightmare of a foul.
you gotta, hey, you have your eyes, ref. You gotta use your eyes if you have them. Are you kidding me?
Get a ref a jersey.
Get a ref a jersey. Get the ref a jersey. Nuts and bolts. Nuts and bolts. We got screwed. It's like they're so old. They can't even see it. They're so far away from the play. They can't see anything.
He's limping.
Oh God.
The referee is limping. He can barely move. Like, where do they get them? Is there like a container load, like a warehouse where they have all these old and tired referees?
Yeah, they just recycle them. I feel kind of bad now. I didn't see the limp.
Yeah, that was kind of mean. I mean, like your nuts and bolts was a lot worse. Like, like you should feel really, really bad. I feel a little bit bad. You should feel terrible.
God, it's even worse that he's limping than I'm yelling at a guy who's limping.
Yeah, I really, really want to yell now, but
Good try. You missed that one, but that's okay. You're doing your best. Give it rest. Give it rest. Do your best.
yeah, like more like inspirational.
Yeah, I didn't even notice it now, and it's like, oh, I feel like I should more support. Like he's out there I'm not out there. He's out there at his age doing that.
Yeah, you're sitting here in a pub.
Oh my God. Yeah. This is my exercise for the week. Can you believe it? This is all, I mean, he's at least moving around. Good work.
That was so lame. Oh God,
Literally.
I didn't mean that. I did not mean that.
Oh, I mean, that's,
No, I swear I didn't mean that. I was like, I was actually talking about your little war cry there was really lame.
yeah. I mean, it's, God, and he can't move. I mean, physically accurate. It's physically accurate.
It is just like a little bit more like, how did you get the job as an inspirational coach?
Oh, it's a funny story actually, and I'm glad you asked that. Like, it's a really funny story because, like when I was younger, I had no direction whatsoever. So the fact that could try, you can't get them all, ref. The fact that I'm actually giving advice to other people, I mean, it's kind of funny. But so what happened is, one day I was flipping through the Rolling Stone magazine. I was just reading that. It was a cover on Nirvana, which I'm a big fan of, and I looked in the back and it said, "Want to change your life?" Question. And there's a question mark, and it was like, call this number. And so like I didn't think anything of it. And then one day I was like, what am I doing with my life? Oh, it's okay. Good try. Good try. You're probably joking. That's a good joke. Brings us a lot of laughter. Your levity is your strength, ref.
Are they giving him the Heimlich?
Oh, he's choking. He's literally.
He's literally
Good work.
choking.
Good work.
You ran too far.
So I was like, well, I'm gonna make this phone call. I got nothing to lose. And I called up and it was a training session. And they said, do you like to travel? And I was like, I love to travel. Do you want to make money? I said, I'd like to make money. They said, do you want to help people? And I said, yeah, I think I do want to help people. And then it was a certification process, and that was it. And one thing led to another. And it's kind of been, next to weekly visits here with you at the pub, that's the only other thing in my life that I've had somewhat success based on just doing it in my life.
That's inspirational. I was just wondering, like,
Thank
you know,
you.
was that 1964 you started?
Yeah. It's been a long time.
Do you feel like a little dip?
Oh, I feel like a big dip right now. Yeah, I feel like I'm at a big, not, I'm like at the, hey, what are you, blind?
You see, that's what I mean. Like, that's not inspirational.
I think he literally is blind.
Oh crap, he has an eye patch. He just turned around, he has an eye patch. And the other one looks a little bit, oh God, okay. I don't think he's like technically, I think he's probably like visually slightly
Impaired.
Yeah, I mean, if you who puts an eye?
Who puts an eye patch? I'll say it. I'll say it if you don't. Who puts an eye patch on besides a pirate? And to be honest, it looks good. It looks good on him,
It
though.
looks really good. Yeah, I mean, he's a pretty nice looking older gentleman.
Oh, he's a silver. We call him silver fox.
Yeah.
He. Oh my God. You know who that is?
Who?
That's Harold. We were together. He and we lived together.
That's your ex?
Yeah.
That's the famous Harold?
Yeah, I didn't think that he was still refereeing matches, and here he is doing it. And I didn't even recognize him. He looks really good. That eye patch makes him look like Kurt Russell from Escape from New York, like Snake Plissken, I think is the character's name. He looks, oh my God, he looks so much.
He looked worse than that when you were with him?
Oh yeah.
I don't mean to be mean or anything, but
no, this is definitely the best he's looked. I mean, wow. Until he turned around, I didn't even recognize, wow, that's him.
Aren't you the one who told him, like, in all your glory, to go into sports in some way?
Yeah, I was, without knowing it, I was motivating him to not only go into sport, but also to leave our relationship. Yeah.
You wanted him to leave you?
He needed to leave me. I was not really appreciative of who he was. It's funny.
You're not really appreciative of who he is now.
No, I'm not at all. And he's very successful. I mean, he's a referee in the Premier League.
Yeah. I don't know if you'd attach the word successful to that, but I mean, considering the job, I cannot keep it down.
Why do you want to keep it down?
Well, because you've always told me that, you should exude compassion. And I've been going around exuding compassion since that moment.
If there's one thing I've learned as a motivational life coach, it's like things you say before, you should drop that and change it to something new just to shake things up. So if you wanna be loud and boisterous to shake things up, I think that's how we truly grow.
Can I get a beer over here? Did that work?
Oh my God, thank you.
Two?
Here. Yeah, thank you. Oh my God, they just brought, hey, I guess this is to new beginnings. God, he looks so good.
Are you thinking of getting in touch with him?
Yeah, as a matter of fact. You know what I used to say is like, wait, really think things out before you just react. I've switched. I think I'm sending a message to him.
Right. He seems to have passed out and he's sitting at the side of the field. He's answering. Yeah, yeah.
Are you okay? Harold,
Yeah.
Harold, Harold.
Oh my goodness, is that Greg?
Yeah. Go on. Hey, Harold, turn your camera on. Yes. Oh, look at you.
Oh man.
You look you look great.
Just hang on a moment. I'm gonna put on FaceTime.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm watching you in the pub and I was screaming and I was yelling and I just you look
Greg.
great. You look great, Harold. I I miss you. I just want to say I'd love to have dinner if you ever come back this way.
Uh, I just
Oh,
were you watching the match?
yeah. I didn't know it was you. And
Do you like the eye patch?
it's it's very sexy, Harold. I want you. Harold, I want you. I want
I'm being oh crap, they're coming at me with guns. They're no, that's not a gun. I worry about these things, but that is oh that's just he's very okay. Oh my god, the players are coming this way.
You're doing a great
Greg, why now? Greg, why now? I'm God.
Harold, no,
No,
Harold,
that was a
Harold.
foul. That was a penalty. That was a
It was
penalty.
a good call, Harold. It was a good call. Gone. But I think he got the message.
Do you think he's still alive?
Here comes the stretcher. Oh, poor Harold.
Wow, that's a lot of blood.
Stain. I'd love like you take such great fun risks when you play and you keep it still grounded, which is always like I just love it. It's just so fun to watch and play with. I love playing with you too.
Okay, I love that was really fun. I mean, I love grounded things. I find it really hard when I kind of lose the ground beneath me, and I'm like, just for the sake of being absurd, I can't. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh." I love it when people can do it, but I can't.
I saw somebody talk about that they were talking about fear and fearlessness and the idea of you have that fear when you feel like kind of groundless, when you don't feel, and sometimes that's why we have conflict in our lives, is because that gives us that ground to stand on, which I thought was an interesting take on the idea.
It's also for me, it's also that I have like memory problems, and that's kind of why I thought, okay, I can do improv if I don't have to remember like a whole list of stuff. And then it turns out you do have to remember what the person did just say. So kind of training back into trying to like as long as I had like a hold on something,
Yeah.
I wouldn't kind of space out and not know where I was.
And it's a different kind of remembering, right? I feel like there's the remembering of like data for a test where you're like, I got to remember this stuff. And then there's the remembering of like, oh, we were in that moment and you were this early on, so therefore you're this now. I feel like they're two different types of like remembering. And one is like, if I'm just present, it'll kind of stick in my brain. And the other is like, you got to regurgitate facts. And anytime anybody's like, here's the form we're going to do tonight, I'm like, oh man, I'm going to try.
I kind of like it when there's a structure that I can look at. I mean, it's easy now with Zoom. You can kind of look at stuff, but I like it when there's that structure and then I feel within it. So it kind of gives me these little, okay, I know what I kind of need to do next if I go blank. And
Right. So like,
that's the reason I kind of really like some kinds of forms, but I do Triode with Miki on Sundays, and there's like no form, and she could go like anyway. So I just have to try and keep grounded and go with her and try and relax and have some fun as well as take it, try not to take it seriously, which is kind of hard for me.
Well, and it seems to be a really good growth experience to do a show with Miki, Miki Manting, who both know, which is like, she has no problem going surreal, going idea, right? So for you, it sounds like what a great, exciting challenge to be like, can my form, and it just proves, because I was lucky enough to play with both of you and it was like such a fun show, but you can make the two styles work. It's just a matter of sometimes it takes a while to figure out what that is, how we work well together.
Yeah, I mean, I always like kind of say to her before, don't go off to, I'm going to keep it
Oh, good.
grounded. And we get in, and I enjoy it. I love that kind of where I can still come in as like the most, and it works for us in that it could be doing some character, and I can still come in as the most grounded person, and it kind of works as the straight versus, absurd kind of thing too. But yeah, I really like where I am now with, the people I play. I'm in a duo called Residuo with CC.
Yeah.
And we do objects, the extraordinary out of the ordinary. And then I have Triode, which is like Miki and a special guest, and then another team that is doing a particular format as well. That's really cool. So it's nice to kind of feel that.
And it's, if you look back on your life, how many nutball, wild, out there people do we know that aren't even improvisers? They're just characters. And so it's like you meet these people when people make these big, bold choices on stage and somebody's like, that's not real or grounded. It's like, no, there are a ton of people like that in the world. There are people who are complete, play by their own rules, go off the rails at any, like we know people like that. So it's it's a way to also, when you come in as that grounded character, it highlights her choice as well. It highlights Miki's choice. So you're not saying like, don't make that choice. You're just like, I'm going to play in this song we're creating. I'm playing these notes. You play your notes and we'll make it work.
And sometimes I do go crazy as well. So it works well in that sense that when I do, it's like also a surprise. It's like, oh, Rejini's going off.
Isn't that a funny thing for you to throw out Miki too? Is like the unexpected. Oh, Rejini's what's like that gives her a little bit of joy, I bet.
And that's the thing. That's the lovely thing of playing with, like, so if I'm playing with Cece or if I'm playing with Miki and the people that I've gotten to know, and to see that moment in which they're laughing or they're enjoying it and they're trying not to, or they've been touched in some way. I think that's like the most wonderful thing about improv is like when you're playing with people that click. Even in many of the classes as well, there've been beautiful scenes that never get seen outside of it. But that moment when you emotionally click with someone and they're enjoying it and you're enjoying it. I just
the best. I mean, that's my favorite thing is like, can I make my scene partner laugh? Can they make me laugh? Like not like just in
not the trying to get the joke in, but
right.
When you see that surprise as they've suddenly almost like they've also just got surprised, it's like cool. It's like the best thing.
It's the best. It's joyful discovery. It's like, oh my God, like that thing just happened. And now it's to me, it's like the moment you're the most childlike is that moment of like that thing. And you see them try not to laugh. And you're like, oh, I got to you. Like, this is super fun. And having that is a bigger reward to me than anybody who's after the show is like, oh, what a great show. Or like, I don't care as much about that as I do. Like, did the people I'm with like playing with me? Was it fun for them? Did we have a ball? Did we do something that cracked each other up once during the show or twice or more? That's what I really like.
It's funny, like before the Zoom improv, I used to feel very responsible. Like if somebody, especially if I'd invited people to an improv show and that I was in, like all the grad shows and all, and I would feel really, really responsible and hope that, they enjoy it. And then I think over a while I was trying to get out of that and then with the Zoom improv, you can't see the audience. So there's still that sense of responsibility, but I guess the last year and a half has taken a lot of that weight off. So that the responsibility for me now is, am I scene partners? Are the team? Are they like, did I do something to help or
Yeah.
well with them? That's more. That's been more. I was going to say, like, the thing about these strange characters that come out of nowhere. Like, so I write books as well,
Yeah.
or I used to. I don't write that much now, but people wouldn't believe that some of the stuff is actually based on real people and
Yes.
real life, and they're like, oh yeah, and it is true. Like people and life is stranger than anything that you could, so that's what I love to do in improv as well, is to have that slightly different thing, not to have the same scene or the same places, but without being out there too much, because I
Yeah.
don't want to justify like aliens landing and well, I will, but I prefer not to have to do it just for the sake of it.
Well, and when, we can play aliens landing that are still like relatable beings. You could
Yeah,
still be like, oh, I had a tough day at work as an alien. Like, you don't have to be like, we're going to create this. I mean, you can, but you don't have to be like, we're going to create this crazy, bigger than life thing. You could still be like, we're married, or we're brother, sister, or we just happen to be aliens. And then it's like, we can play the same tropes we're all used to. And I think that brings us as much joy. Now, there are some folks that are good at being like, I'm going to come up with dialogue that's alien like. And you're like, all right, man, because I feel like also that's where they're coming from. They love shows about aliens. And so they can bust into that. So it's like, cool, you do that. I'm going to try and keep up with you, but I'm not going to I'm going to bring myself to the scene as much as you bring yourself to the scene. And the fun is like, how do we make this work? How do we make your choices and my choices work together in this scene? It always happens, but and when you said responsibility for the audience, I laughed because the first couple years doing shows, I would meet my friends after the show or family, and I go, I'm sorry, like immediately. I would apologize immediately. And they'd be like this, but we had a good time. And I'm like, no, the edits were slow, and they don't give a shit about that stuff. They're just like, it was fun watching you be a fish up there. And I'm like, I know, but we were trying to call back, and they're like, we don't care about any of that stuff. So I think a lot of times we underestimate how powerful it is to just get on stage with someone. Like, people can't believe they can't believe you're doing it. First off, they're scared to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I used to have the same friend, that now I don't ask to come to improv shows because I know she's had her fill. But she used to come to them, and a few of my friends would come, and the amazement was more about, hey, you got up there.
Yeah.
And then he would ask about classes after that or something to do it, which is great. And I don't know. I think it's taking it from other fields and coming in and saying, okay, I've done this in this other field. I should be able to do it straight away, and like what I was going to say was that it's not that I mind anyone else playing an alien. It's just that I know I will play it in a certain way, exactly as you said. Like, there are people who do amazing improv that's just not the style that I know how to do yet or that I'm good at.
Yeah.
So I kind of trying to find the place where I feel the most comfortable and then work from there without judging anyone else's kind of
I mean,
game.
it's huge. It's huge to be like, I'm going to do my thing. I'm not going to judge your thing. I know people that are really, really good at dialects and have trained in like dialects. So they get it. Like, I have a buddy who I asked to read a sketch for a student once with a British or with an Irish accent. And he said, what county? So he's like, really,
Yeah.
it's that trained. And I'm not good at dialects. Not my thing. I've tried it. So I stole something from my buddy Charlie, where he was on stage with someone who was like, we're German, and set this whole thing up as being German. And then he responds, he goes, and he's from London. And he just said, I spent a year in London. Like, he didn't even try to do an accent. He was just like, so anytime I'm in a situation like that, I'll just say like, oh, I spent some time in America recently. So I'm not going to deny it, but I'm not going to make something. To me, I don't want to ever come across as like, oh, you're playing a stereotype or you're making fun of the language, because I don't find joy in that. So I find these little tools where I'm like, oh, I'm going to steal that. So Charlie's giving me that, where it's like, I'm never going to attempt to do it because it's not my thing. You can do it if you want to do it, but like,
I'm actually like, if someone said something, I could mimic them really well. And I find like, you know how when you, like I lived in Nigeria, I was born in Nigeria, and then I lived in Ireland for almost 30 years. So like I find when I go back into that, if I'm with
You can
people that
do
speak,
it.
you know, it automatically comes, and you almost think that they think you're making fun of people
Yes.
because suddenly more Irish accent or more. But I've lost, like I used to try, you know, to do a Cork accent when I was in Cork to see if, you know, I did convince a taxi driver once that I was from there. But if I now try to do an accent, I have to use the stereotypical words, and I don't want to do that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't
I
want to say.
I remember I had a friend or a student who was from Australia, and people would do the whole like shrimp on a Barbie thing is like, and he's like, why do people do that? And I like, it's years of hearing that. And I had a student who was from Russia, and they did the whole we're spies Russian accent. She's like, wow. And it took me a moment to be like, yeah, what, we don't have to do the things that are like stereotypical of it. And we should also have a space where it's like, yeah, you should be able to try it, but like if you can pull it off and it's authentic, and like you have a history, you've spent time in the country, you spent time in the culture, so it's a little different than somebody who gets up there and is like, I'm going to give this accent a whirl, and it's like, that's a terrible. My accents kind of start like French and then just wander Europe. Like I'll start French and that'll be a little bit Spain, like it sounds like I'm from Spain. And so I just stopped doing it because it doesn't bring me joy. I'm like, I don't want people to think I'm making fun of them, and that the punchline is the language.
I stayed in France for a few years, so and I really tried to learn French. And I thought I could speak it, but I was very quickly persuaded that I didn't. And but that is probably the only accent that I could kind of do, because if I try and put it like I'm speaking the language, then it's not those words that you have to go to. It's like any words you could try.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard not to fall into like that you're mocking something. And I
Right.
know there's certain accents that no matter how well you do them, they're going to come across as mocking. So
Yeah.
I'm like, don't try those, don't try those. I
They-
might occasionally try it, but even then, it sometimes feels like if I don't normally have an Indian accent, and then I
yeah.
suddenly put in an Indian accent, it could work for me as an improviser, but it actually sometimes almost sounds like I'm also mocking, and it's
Yeah.
just it's like kind of staring away. But then I find though that it doesn't feel like my characters are really different from me, because I'm not doing enough stuff that's.
Well, what we forget is we're interesting characters. We don't need to put on big dialects or anything. Some people can do it. Some people can 100% jump in. It's authentic and they have different voices. But we are so interesting, and we spend a lifetime, I feel like, hating ourselves. So we go, I got nothing to offer. It's like, but if you look at your life, you play different characters all the time with different groups you're in. You're a different character around someone that you are in a relationship with versus someone at work versus someone
I
you're
kind of
supervising.
forgot what that's like. So.
Yeah. So it's like, I just play, I, I find like, I find just different versions of heightened versions are fun for me to play right now. It might change, but I'm like, I'm different with my partner than I am with my kids. I'm a different status at both places. I'm different around when I'm teaching or when I'm taking a class or when I'm asking of somebody at a restaurant to put cheese on my burger. Like I'm a different character. So I feel like we can explore that a lot more. And then there's more to us than we give. Nobody looks at themselves as like, I'm great. And I think we have so much inside of us that we could use.
Well, if every time if I do think that I'm great, I just remember what I'm like on a customer service call. It takes me about 4 hours, but then when I'm like I'm literally like spluttering and blood pressure out to and then after it, and I work in the area of like software for it, so I know what they have to put up with. And so after the call, I'm like, oh God, did I just? I'm a terrible person. I'm really a terrible person. I'm like, you waited 4 hours before you lost your temper. That's okay. I feel like feel rotten. And
Yeah.
usually I don't do it unless someone is like really mean.
Right. Well, you're pushed to that point. You're not somebody who's coming out of the, guns blazing. It's like, I've given you you spent this time being very disrespectful to me, and I'm gonna push back on you now. I've given you enough time. I've heard you enough time. I know you're frustrated, but that doesn't give you any right to talk to me like that. And it's just a natural, it's such a natural reaction, right?
Yeah, I mean, I still manage to. I do think that people should, if they ever want to feel bad about themselves, to bring themselves down a peg or two, should remember what they're like at those moments in life. That's what I use to keep myself grounded. It's like, you think you're a nice person, you think you're compassionate. What did you do to that poor call agent? And well, they did keep me on for 4 hours. They did get every single thing wrong over and over again.
How did you get started in improv? What made you take a class or do a show or however you got started?
I moved to Atlanta in 2015 or something, end of 2015, and I am an author, and I get, we do readings, and so I wanted to do something that would help me project a bit more. I have to tell you this, even though my sister at one point told me that how do you get interviews? How do you ever, because when you're on the phone, she compared me to, there's a character called the Mumbler on Seinfeld.
Yes. No, she said that when you were.
That's before I was going into an interview. Just before I was going into the interview, I'm like, that's really encouraging.
Oh my God.
So, part of she's like, how do you do these readings? You don't project. So I asked her, I wanted to do acting classes. And then I remembered that I don't remember anything. So somebody that I knew here, a friend, said, hey, I do improv for kids and then she mentioned 2 theaters, Dad's Garage and the Village.
Yeah.
And I happened to go on the Village website and signed up for a class, and I loved it so much. I did all the levels, and then I signed up to do Dad's, all the levels in Dad's, and every class that was on, I did it. I created a team as well, Tapestry for immigrant improvisers.
Wow.
And I was briefly on some other teams, but so I was kind of in the Atlanta improv scene. But I have to say, being older was not an advantage there.
Yeah.
And so finding Vintage during the pandemic was just what opened up the world to me for improv. And yeah, I'm wondering about how to go back to, because when you do it in Vintage, there's so many people who are over 50.
Yeah.
And even those who are not over 50 are very, very supportive, but they're very rich experiences. And it's not, I can relate more to that than, I didn't go to high school in the US. And so if they're much younger, then a lot of their, it's do a high school scene. And I'm like, I don't know. Doing a high school. I've watched movies, so but it's not authentic in a way for me.
Yeah.
Unless I play the geek Indian visitor or something.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like it's authentic for me, but so it's been great to have people with different experiences, and that I can mine my own experiences and do a lot richer stuff than I kind of allowed myself to do before.
And that is such a huge part of what can happen in the improv community and the ecosystem is and I used to get asked a lot by these younger kids when I would teach, and they're like, what do I have to do to be a better improviser and this and that? And I would say live life. You got to have a lot of experience. You got to do stuff that's not improv related. You got to get some experience, and with that comes wisdom, and your desperation will go away a little bit when you're on stage, and it'll be a lot easier. And finding, like you said, with Vintage, you find those people that have that shared vernacular, that shared experience level, you just find it's more comfortable. And what's going to happen when things get back to being more familiar, I don't know. I'm sure this to me, I look at it like, oh, I'm sure there'll be more opportunities we'll find than before. Whereas before it was like, oh, the Village and Dad's Garage. We're kind of in Atlanta. We're like, oh, those are the two choices you have. And then you kind of go through and you're like, yeah. And you're like, now what? And some people are like, I don't honestly want to be on a team that rehearses 3 hours a week and that does a show. I just want to continue to improvise. And we didn't have the opportunities to do that for folks. And now I feel like, oh, we've got it now and it's easier to find. The world's kind of shrunk a little bit, and we'll still do virtual and we'll still find people around us that we maybe weren't able to find before.
Yeah, I mean, if I think about it, everyone on, like, I do a duo and she's in Germany. I do a trio where Miki's in Boston or near Boston. I'm on a team where we're all, in different places.
Yeah.
And so I can, in a way, knowing that I will never, unless I'm visiting, I will never have a long running, like, act that's in person with them, is also like, it's a factor, in thinking about, like, do I want to create this partnership or this thing? Is it something that I think I'm just going to put aside? And I don't want to put it aside. It's like some of the most beautiful moments have been with these people that I don't want to let go of now. Yeah. And I don't want to, I mean, there is a part of me that really is nervous about going back to, a setting where all the things that older people, women, feel, gay people, LGBTQ people feel when they go into an in-person theater that's mostly older straight men, is, like being called on stage. I was called out for my gray hair, and I was put as like literally a young guy in a jam. I'm on stage and there's an audience and he says something about, oh, but you're an old woman. And I'm like, okay, I hadn't been playing an old woman.
Right.
I guess I am now. And the greatest part for me was, I don't normally think quickly, but the end of the scene for me was kind of putting him in this place a little bit, in a fun way. But I don't want it to be that. I don't want improv to be me finding a way to show that you just did something that was really like, oh, and now I'm showing you up. That to me is not improv. That's like tit for tat that just goes nowhere. Yeah. And what I want is like that common base of we're all there as equals and we're all there with equally fascinating lives. And I do take on this thing about, if someone makes you a grandmother, then you become like the not the stereotypical, the astronaut that you were going to be. And that's great, but there is something that's kind of demoralizing a little bit when you're always like the mother or the older person, and so to see like older people playing kids, not kids. I mean, this is my personal thing. I don't like playing kids, unless you play them really to the height of intelligence. But being playful is and to let yourself be playful is what I really want to see, and to, playful without putting anyone else kind of into a box, or
well, it starts to me with the teachers, and to like call that shit out starting day one, and to set the playing field to be like, the fun of improv is you can be and play a whole bunch of people. And as humans, we go, oh, physically you're in this box, so I'm going to put you in this box. And it's like you're taking away the individuality of everyone. So if the teachers can do it and not rely on the people who are being subjected to that to stand up to it, that's the part that's like, it shouldn't be that person. It should be the teacher. We should give the students a voice to be able to say that as well. We should say like, hey, I noticed that you're always calling person X, you're labeling them as a grandmother or a grandfather. It's like, I don't mind playing those characters. And right now I'm at the point where I'm starting to be like, oh, I could be grandpa, but I also want to play so many other characters just like anybody does. So like, for some reason, it's okay for younger folks to play a father or different ages. But when you get older people in a classroom, they always are put in the position of being the old person. It's like, let's not let that happen. And because of the pandemic, we can reset these rules and say, like, let's re-examine what's gotten us here, and then what works, keep, and then the other shit throw out and go, okay, cool. Let's be on the lookout for this stuff because it's limiting our growth. And it's like, yeah, if you are taking an improv class for fun and each week you're like, oh my God, this keeps happening and it's okay. I don't mind being a grandparent, but like, I don't want to do whatever you've seen, then eventually you're not going to come back. And we're losing that part of our ecosystem.
I mean, I was very lucky with the groups that I went through. I mean, we made friends, and that was the wonderful part about doing improv,
Yeah.
studying it and going. And after that, I mean, you said teachers, and it's very true, because even when we were doing in person, I had Jim Carwish was my mentor and teacher in Atlanta. So we had like a space where at least I got to go there and be treated with like all the respect and never being put in boxes. And then with that coming online and having teachers, like I know I did classes with you at the start, I did with Raz as well. And, and to get to play with people and be taught by people that you would just have heard their names or met them once or twice at a festival is like, I mean, Susan Messing, I'm doing classes with her, I'll be doing with Patty Stiles. It's just like all these people that you're like, how am I in a class with? And I can do this regularly.
Yeah.
And I fly, which I hate flying, so I don't have to fly.
And they're telling you too, like, great move, good work, right? I mean, they're endorsing good teachers. It's like they're just endorsing what's in you, and they're saying like more of that stuff, do more of that. And it's a shift for a lot of folks to be in an atmosphere like that, where it's like, oh, okay, I can do it. Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, that some good came out of this nightmare is a wonderful thing, but we hadn't taken that.
Right.
I actually feel like because I live on my own, I'm kind of outside of Atlanta, and I'm in this like big property that I'm trying to make a retreat in. So it's a very quiet place. And I am an introvert, but I need to go out every night. I play soccer to get my social thing. And I used to, improv was that. And I realized, and I work remotely. So there would be weeks in which I wouldn't know what my voice sounded like unless I said something to the dog or to the cat. And then like through the pandemic, I think I've actually, like every single day I have something. I don't think there's been like maybe 3 days out of the last year and a half where I haven't had something where I'm on Zoom or, talking to people or something. And it's like, was I more isolated before than I am now?
Maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. And it got us like, I mean, you're right. That's the one. There are some bright spots, and not to diminish what's been happening, because it's been, especially in the States, with the way that the pandemic has been raging on, and now it's back again. And there's that uncertainty about what's happening, and people are getting sick. Like, not to diminish that, but to look at those moments of like, what are the positives? It's like, well, I think for a lot of us, we've also realized maybe I'm not as much. For me, I'm like, I thought I was more introverted, but I missed the interaction of just day to day. Like, here's your coffee, you're getting on the bus. Like, just even knowing that that's possible, I missed that. And then it's made the world smaller. So now we can connect so much easier. And like you and I, unless we were in the same city or, like you say, flying somewhere, a festival. And even then it's like, oh, maybe we meet once and we do one thing and that's it. Now it's like, no, we can do shows as long as our schedules connect. So I do think it's a good thing. And if people want to follow what you're doing, like, what's the best way they can do that? And how can they get your books also?
Oh, well, God, I'm the worst marketer for books, but I write under RJ Rejini, and which is also the worst pen name in the world. It doesn't serve a single purpose. It doesn't hide me, and it doesn't also like say anything. But so I'm on Amazon. I have 5 novels out, and they're there. So I guess like that was a plug in a way for me.
I like how you're like, I'm on Amazon. I've got novels, plural. I've got novels there. They're really good. Like there's one that's like a medical mystery.
Yeah, there's the first one is a medical thriller. It's a Heartstopper. It's a medical thriller, but it's also kind of cross genre because it's about racism. It's about an Indian in it's a love story. It's set in Ireland, and it's also like I I was told like if you're writing a medical thriller, it has to be plausible. So I kind of invented like I don't want anyone to really know about it in some ways because I kind of may have invented a way to kill without being traced. So I'm like, oh God, don't let anybody check this out. Please don't let me find out that someone actually did this.
Oh
That would,
no.
although you would need access to pacemakers, so I'm kind of
Which
assuming.
I do. I've got a closet of pacemakers right
Oh,
here.
well, the other two, the next two are about this idea that you can, paint your own life. You can,
Yeah.
yeah, and so it's about a vision painter, the only female vision painter. And so I made up this profession, and people were asking about it. So I wrote the second in the series. And there isn't actually a profession of vision painters, but I made up a 200-year history, and
Oh my God.
that's a like a it's a very unusual series, and then it was a romantic intrigue based on online deception was another one, and the last one was took 3 years to write, and it's about a lot of stuff. It's like about biphobia and identity, and about racism and domestic violence and narcissism, and it's all a little thriller. So
Wow.
it
And
sounds really heavy, but it's actually a thriller. So.
it's really interesting how you wave things that you have a passion for defending or bringing out to light, how you wave those into your stories.
Oh yeah, I mean, for that's why I can't. I mean, I can't market mine in the same way because I don't write to market. So there sometimes they can be difficult books and they make people feel.
Yeah.
And what I love is that, people who contact me, they have been moved to, and they've gotten the message that I have kind of like I always have a theme and a message.
Mm.
But I want to make it like that you get it through entertainment. So it's still like a mystery, it's still a love story, it's still, but the underlying message is what I want to kind of get across. Like I grew up in Ireland, and well, a lot of my time was in Ireland, and I felt it being one of the few brown people there
Mm.
in the 90s. It was difficult, and I thought instead of being, I wasn't, I came out as well. So now I was a brown lesbian there, and it was rather than being as activist, like I was a little bit, but mostly it was like the more people that got to know me and were friends with me when it came time to vote for things, that affected my life. I hoped that they would remember that they thought highly of me. And that's kind of the same way when I come up, with things I really want to get out there, like, how there is mental illness and how narcissism is dangerous, even in
Yeah.
the lesbian community, and how biphobia is rampant sometimes in some communities that shouldn't. Then I think if you can get the reader to really empathize with your character, which is what all writers are supposed to do, but then I can kind of get that same impact, which is that they may look at a brown person in Ireland differently. They may realize that when they say, "Well, you're not really Irish, are you?" When you're an Irish citizen, that kind of hurts.
Yeah.
Just those little things that if I bring it up, when they say, you speak English really well, and I'm like, "Oh, it's the only language I speak." So, but that's kind of by middle-aged women
Yeah.
um, who should probably know better, but that's all they know at that
That's
time.
all they know. And
And
it's interesting of like this is somewhat like entertainment, like writing novels and books, but like you really hope that people learn from it and they leave it not even like it's not like you're hitting them over the head with something, but it's like you're bringing to light things in a sense that of things you've experienced and expounding on that, and then changing people's minds through that, which I think is like really good art. It does the same thing where it's like you're changing people, you're having a discussion, you're opening it up, you're making people go, hey, wait a minute, I'm seeing something similar to something I read, and now I saw what happened there, so then I can make a different change and a different choice.
yeah, and sometimes it's like something I'm struggling with. Like if as the world is changing around me, and I'm like, okay, I don't know how I feel about this particular thing, So then I write a character that has a problem with that, and I help them change through it, and then I change.
Wow.
And that's that. I explore a lot through writing it, and I think that's why, in some ways, it has an effect on other people. Is it's changed me as I wrote it, so it's bound to change you in some way. And if you accept that and you learn from it, then great. We connect then, and I may have imparted something that helps you to think of things in a different way, to feel differently about things. I want to make people feel. Like that's my biggest thing. If someone writes to me and tells me, and they have, like somebody emailed me at a point through my fourth book, and they were like, "Oh, this is great. I'm loving this," and I'm like, "Oh, great." I'm like, "Wait till that point in the book," and next thing I get an email going, "What did you do?"
Wow.
She was really mad that I'd done
Yeah.
what. And I'm like, wait till the end, or getting emails to say that like my book kept them up at night. It's like, yeah, I'm keeping somebody up at night. That's great.
Well, and you're writing your truth. And that's, I think, what artists try to do. And whether it's in an improv scene or a book or whatever, it's like, what's your truth? And like, this is my truth. And I'm sharing that, excuse me, I'm sharing that with people. And you're finding an audience of people that it really resonates with. I mean, it's amazing.
I mean, it's funny because years ago, I remember I was sitting in the college bar in the university in Ireland, and I had written I was young, I was naive. I had written a little poem, and showed it to the person sitting next to me, and he was like, "Do you want honest?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Still thinking it's pretty cool, right? And he's like, "This is trite. There's nothing but words that, like a cliche, like time passes, whatever." And I was like, whoa, oh no. And years later, and I'm doing writing classes, and I'm better.
Yeah.
Because I'm not using like this. I'm still using words in a way that isn't as expressive as as different. And then I go to France and I have 3 years of absolute hell, and I'm a different person. I'm like, it's like the worst period of my life, and I come back and I go to writing classes, and the first class I did, I was just, it was a question, "Why are you here?" And I answered it truthfully. Like for the first time, just, this is my truth. Here it is. And it came out really well. And I realized that's all I'm going to do from now on. Is I'm going to still do it within the art of writing, or the craft of writing. But I'm not going to sugar it up anymore.
Yeah.
If it sounds a bit harsh, it's usually because that is the truth of what, of what life is at times. And that's worked for me, in that I've found, and I wrote 5 novels that way, in short stories, and always it's still trying to do it, as a structured novel, and working to all of those things, but it's got a voice that's mine, and I'm proud of that.
God, I mean, that's what we hope for, is to be that, like, this is my voice, I'm sharing my voice, and I have the courage to put it out there, whether you like it or not, doesn't matter. This is my voice, and I'm gonna be as loud as I can with it. And I'm not gonna, it's almost like you were the mumbler character with your writing at a certain point, where you're kind of mumbling, and then it's like, no, you got to share your voice. And then you found the courage, you got to a point where you're like, all right, screw it. This is it. I don't care. And that's it. And now it's like, I think we hope we get there for like people. I feel like, man, I hope that I feel like I'm at that point where I'm sharing my voice, but it's taken a long time. And some people do it early on, and some people it's just like, oh, it takes you a while, and eventually you share it. And some people maybe don't as much, but you just hope that people find that courage to be like, this is my voice. And I think as improvisers, we can support each other to share the voice, rather than stop, don't bring that to the table, be like this whole group of people the same. So like, no, the whole point of this is to share your voice in this group, to then create this beautiful song together.
I think that's the strange thing for me about when I started improv is I stopped writing almost.
Mm,
And part of the first part of my education in improv was to forget everything that I had ever learned about writing, because you
yeah.
have to be spontaneous, you have to be in the moment. And while I love that, 2 years in, I'm starting to be like, whoa, where did the writer go? Like, why am I not letting myself do anything on stage that is related to the person I am when I'm writing? Why can't I get the messages out in scenes the same way? And it's taken like the last while
Yeah.
to go from, okay, I still haven't got back like my full writing when
Hmm.
I'm, because it's a different art form,
Yeah.
and you can't write a scene. You have to be like, you have to react in the moment. But I do find that I'm bringing in more, and the stuff that I like
Mm.
is really, it's not necessarily like a full play or anything, but the fact that you could do like some really moving, beautiful
Yeah.
scenes that are, I mean, now you're writing them as you go.
You write as you go. You're still
Yeah.
writing them, and you're still, and part of it is, I think there are some teachers that don't embrace the idea of a story. And I'm like, that's what movies and books are. It's like, don't shy away from telling a story as you go here. Don't shy away from making a point about something you're passionate about, or like embrace that, but write as you go and then continue on rather than trying to prescribe it. But I mean, who knows? It's all good to me. It's all good.
I was going to say, like, the two, I sometimes don't know if I can do short form that much anymore, because I've been doing more what feels like
Yeah.
not short form. But I have to say, like, my favorite moment or moments that I've had in improv are like a grad show in Dad's garage, where there were like, for an improv audience, there were like 75 people there. That's like thousands.
Yes.
But everyone in the show had invited friends and friends, and like, so it felt like a real like performance.
Yes. Yeah.
And there was a bit we were doing one of those games where you fast forward, rewind that one,
Yeah.
and there were just two of us on stage, and I was kind of going around, and I had to come back and say stuff in Spanish, and the audience were like, when that adrenaline from I don't know which hormone it is, but when the audience is roaring with laughter, and you're there, and you're almost like you're in a
Yeah.
zone, and that was from an improv game.
Yeah.
So, like, if one of the moments that I had that felt the best was from an improv game, and then other types of moments I've had in these grounded, sparkly scenes um, is like almost like I know that where I fit the most,
Mm.
but it doesn't mean that I can't have fun and enjoy
Yeah.
watching and being a part of the more game thing. It's like finding who you are in improv, the same way as finding who you are as a writer.
And it could change. You know what I mean? It's like some days you're like, I love this style. And then like a couple years later, you're like, I like this other one. And then you go back and forth, and there's no fault to it. I think the only time there's a fault is when somebody bashes a certain style. It's like, maybe it's not for you. That's cool. And maybe you don't enjoy playing it. Maybe it's too fast or too slow or whatever it is, but you don't have to bash a form. It's like, it works for someone, and that's cool. And like, let it work for someone.
And sometimes like the people doing it are geniuses.
Yeah.
And part of why sometimes maybe you feel like bashing is like, you'll never do that.
Right.
You'll
Right.
never be as good as that.
Right.
So you're like, okay, I'm going to be really good at this thing. And and so like this thing is not as good because it's still genius. It still made
Yes.
you laugh out loud. It still made you
Yes.
feel stuff. Like, so I think
God.
we all have a place. It's just finding. Sometimes I mean, like I did, I don't know how many hours of improv during the week. And there was a period of time where I was like, okay, my mind is fried. I don't know what type of improviser I am. I don't know what I'm doing. So I just pared it down to one teacher, and then other teachers occasionally. And then that was like almost, it felt like, okay, I needed that. And I
Yeah.
got to a place which is, don't put that much pressure on yourself to I think that message that we get sometimes is that we have to be good. We have to be able to play with anyone. I don't agree with that. I do think that you have to be able to play nice with
Yeah.
everyone. You have to be supportive. You have to be able to treat everyone the same. To but you don't have to be able to do, you know, different styles that you're just not comfortable with.
I mean, I feel like I can play with anyone. Doesn't mean I have to. I could be like, I know I could play with person X. I don't like playing with person X. So I'm not going to play with person X because they don't bring me joy, and I play a different style and they could do their own thing. I just don't feel trusted or safe on stage. So I don't have to play with them, but I can play that. I think we could all play. We can play. It's just maybe it's just age, but like the older you get or like the more experience you get, or you get to a certain point where you're like, I'm not going to spend my time doing that. That doesn't bring me joy. So like, it's cool. You do that thing. I don't want to do it. I know I have the skills to be able to play those scenes. It's just, I don't want to. And that's a big difference for me now.
I have this image of one or two poor people locked away who are like, these are the people that Jay Suko, of the nicest improviser in the world, will not play with. I'm like, oh, you poor things. You poor things. How
Sorry.
did you end up in that room? How bad are you?
Sorry. Well, my friend, whether it's in person, virtual, I don't care. It's just a blast playing with you, and I can't wait to play with you again. Thanks so much for spending time with me today.
You too. I really enjoyed that, and I loved the chat after. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk soon.
Bye.